And that is the Kansas Community Innovation Fund. And yes, I know we are having this call. So hopefully you can see the
good.
You can
I'm
see
glad that was you.
Yeah, that's right. See Steve's PowerPoint, and Steve, welcome. And we're all in your hands, waiting to hear about this new work that Kansas is doing.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for giving me the time to share with you. We are. This is a new fund that is being launched in actually this month, and what I'd like to do is kind of share that I'm gonna stay at kind of not get into the nitty gritty details. Imogene Harris is on the call as well, and if there is a particular project at the end of this that you think might fit or work, then I would invite you to just email either me or Imogene Harris, and we can talk about that. I told Nancy it occurred to me that I'm assuming everyone knows about Network Kansas that's on the call. If you don't, you can also email me and I'd be happy to send you some information. But we work all across the state with a group of nonprofit and government sector partners to connect entrepreneurs and businesses to resources, primarily education, expertise, and economic resources. And so we also have what we call an entrepreneurship community network. We have 60 of those communities across the state and those communities have local leadership teams that are kind of driving the work in those communities. And we try and support that work with our assets that we have. Can you go to the next slide, Nancy? The idea behind this fund actually has been about 18 months in the works. About 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago, the Kansas Health Foundation, who we know pretty well, had actually contacted us to work on another project called the Kansas Healthy Food Finance Initiative. And that initiative is actually working with David Proctor at K-State and the Health Foundation and an organization called IFF out of St. Louis that is a certified development financial institution. And so we began working with them on that. At the same time, we were, Jeff Usher at the Health Foundation was looking at kind of ideas to work in an emerging area. And if you haven't heard this term, you'll notice it more and more and more now, I can promise you. And that is the term of impact investing. And there's a kind of actually it's a global trend that is kind of seeping through everywhere now, where foundations are looking at other ways to what they would call invest for impact. And a couple of different things about that are that impact investing basically is part of that is rather than providing grants, it is investing in a way with an expectation of a return. And so it's the purest idea of impact investing is a foundation that, like the Health Foundation, instead of just granting out 5% of their money a year, the idea behind it is taking another piece of their money, like their investment portfolio money, and investing that with an expectation of a return. And so that's the purest form. This is not that. This is like, I'll laugh, Nancy's gonna laugh about this. It's kind of a pilot where we are working with the Health Foundation. So we started working on this idea in two different areas, and I'm going to only share one. And I think that maybe a couple months down the road, it might be good to share the other piece. I'll talk about it a little bit later. in relation to working with community foundations. But we began working on an idea and a proposal to where the Health Foundation and Network Kansas would partner to provide loans to not only businesses, but potentially other types of partners in a community as well. It could be a nonprofit. It could be a government sector partner as well. And so we began working on this idea of the Kansas Community Investment Fund. And the fund basically is combining the ideas of making entrepreneurship a priority, but also all of the assets in a community that make a community livable for entrepreneurs and other people, to look at those things like healthcare, like increasing the health equity of citizens in a community, like making the community a more vibrant community so people want to live there. And so one of the things that the Health Foundation, I think, recognizes is that you can't help people be more healthy without having them be more wealthy as well. And on the other side, you can't have entrepreneurs aren't going to live in a community that is not a vibrant community, that has healthcare, that has places to go and things to do. And so the basic idea is the Health Foundation has provided us with we have a 3-year grant with the Health Foundation, and they are putting in $500,000 in the loan pool, and we are matching $500,000 in the loan pool to create this fund that we call the Kansas Community Investment Fund. Can you, next slide, please? So some of the goals behind the Community Investment Fund are, one of the biggest is to begin creating a model of how this might work. And so one of the things that we at Network Kansas have, as most of you know, is a significant partner network and a community network that is already basically doing deals across the state. So we have a scalable system of networks. Oh, can you go back to the other one? I always worry about technology, and one of the things I panicked about is I didn't print this out. So we are already working across the state with communities, with partners, and so we have already recognizable deal flow through our current networks. Another piece of this is to try and create a model that might work with community foundations and other place-based philanthropy organizations in the future. And the whole idea is to look for projects that are related around community vibrancy and health equity. Now, I presented at CRETA and I said, well, we are starting that with a pretty wide net of what that means. And I'll go into that a little more detail here in a minute. One other goal of it is that we are hoping to attract additional investment from other organizations, corporations that, provide services across the state, and other organizations that could actually put money into this fund as well. Okay, next slide. So the Kansas Community Investment Fund is different than any other type of loan program that Network Kansas has. And there's a couple of things that I want to just, what I call distinguishing characteristics. One of them is that we are looking at these in a different way. One of them is we've created an impact and risk review. So when an application comes in, actually this came from our work with the Healthy Food Initiative. We have an impact score for each project on how it can positively impact the community. And we have a risk score as well. We are looking at these as investments. These are investments we expect a return because we want this will be probably on the risk scale. The Network Kansas deals tend to take more risk than this project necessarily will. I talked about the health equity and community vibrancy piece, but the idea behind this is to create a model that can be duplicated in the local communities as well. Okay, next slide. Okay. There are some characteristics that are very similar to what we've done in the past. This loan fund is a matching loan fund. So part of the design of this program is very similar to how we've designed our other loan programs, in that it is a matching program. It is money that is the riskier money in the deal, like working capital, like inventory. And if in a direct loan application where we get directly from one of our partners, it would be 15% of the private capital up to $250,000 in the deal. The one thing that is very similar is that all of the projects will go through one of our partners. It can be a partner that administers loans, like all of the certified development companies around the state, which all of you know. If you're in the West, Bob Wetmore, Randy, South Central Economic Development District, Southeast Prosperity Foundation, Frontier Financial, all of those types of partners will be working on these deals as well, and the e-communities as well. The e-communities have demonstrated significant capacity in the ability to work deals, and so deals can come directly from them as well. But an entrepreneur will not, a business or a project will not come directly from us. It will come through one of our partners. And so that's a key characteristic of it, and something that we've done. We have a huge 10-year history with all of these people, and so these organizations, so we think that's very important. The primary, one of the impact score pieces is underserved populations and underserved places. And so rural, if it's in a metropolitan area, we'll be really looking at two things. One is it in an urban distressed area that is generally defined as a census tract where 20% or more of the population is below poverty level, and women and minority-owned businesses. So that, as most of you all know, that's really a primary focus of most of our deals anyway. The one big difference in this and our Network Kansas loan programs is that a nonprofit and a government entity can apply to this loan fund. With the Network Kansas loan programs, they're all for-profit businesses that have to apply, but in this program, now the big difference is the one thing we're going to be looking at on nonprofit or government entity is it's got to be a sustainable entity. One example would be like a nonprofit daycare center or a healthcare facility or something that already has assets flowing in and cash flow that can sustain itself. Okay, next. On the direct applications, I talked about the 15%, and it can be private capital plus. Someone asked the other time, can a grant be part of that capital? And it can, as long as it's verifiable. The terms of the loans will be a floor rate of 4%. We will match the terms of whoever the biggest partner is. So if it's a 7-year, 7% loan, we'd be that. If it's we'll basically match the terms, and we do cap it at 10 years. Primarily, that's something that we would look at on a project by project basis, but kind of our general rule is going to be 10 years because we want this money to be able to flow back in and make more loans. And our monthly rounds will be on the 15th of each month. And as I said earlier, they must be submitted by partners. Okay, next slide. Can you go back? Yeah. So one other thing is that I talked about the first two. The other is a project objective and what it's trying to, if it really meets the some of those criteria of community vibrancy and health equity. The risk score is based on our history. We have a lot of history with loans, and we know the easiest example to give is we went through all of our loans that we've ever done, and we have an average match that we're in a deal, whether it's a loan program like Startup Kansas or an e-community deal. And what we found is we looked at the failures, and sure enough, on the failures, we were more of the loan as a percent than the average. We looked at the paid in fulls, and sure enough, we're below the average match. And so like on a Startup Kansas loan program, our average is 15%. All the paid in fulls were below 15%. All the failures on average were above 15%. So those are some of the things that we are evaluating internally that we hadn't in the past. Okay, next slide. These are our email addresses for if you have and I would say if one thing I think I missed a slide that one of the things that where deal flow is going to come from that I didn't mention. Deal flow is going to come from all of the network. Every Network Kansas loan will be reviewed for health equity and community vibrancy, and it is possible that we might purchase a loan out of that, like a participation agreement. So if we see a Startup Kansas, let me give you an example. In December alone, we have a grocery store in Western Kansas. We have a fitness center. We have a pharmacy in Western Kansas. Those deals are potential deals that the Community Investment Fund may end up purchasing out of one of our other loan portfolios. And then the other way is direct from our partners on specific deals. If you have a deal that is not being funded through one of our Network Kansas deals that you think might fit, you need to contact Imogene or myself to discuss. Okay, last slide. This is the other part I wanted to mention, and I think that it is launching at a little bit slower pace, is that, figures I'm getting a call. And that is, at the same time, we are launching a program called the Kansas Community Philanthropy Innovators Network. And the Community Investment Fund is one piece. The second piece to this is, when I said working on how to develop this locally, is that impact investing for community foundations long-term, we think is going to be a big deal. And so the Health Foundation provided a grant to Locus Impact Investing and the Aspen Institute to create 2 18-month cohorts of a community foundation in partnership with the economic development organization in that community to work on the ideas of how they might do impact investing. And we believe the Community Investment Fund is going to inform those decisions on what those structures might look like. Why are people, sorry about that, my phone is, sorry, I'm too dumb to know how to forward my phone. But let me give you an example of that. Here's an idea that one of the local, and the first cohort I can't announce today because I don't know who's supposed to know yet, but there are 4 community foundations that have been selected. 3 are rural and 1 metropolitan. And they are partnering with the economic development people. I've listed, our staff is going through the cohort as well with those communities. But let me give you one example of how this could work. One of the community foundations is actually looking at creating a local loan fund, along with an endowed fund that helps support economic development in that community. And what one of the CEOs of the community foundation said to me is, I have some donors who would love to donate for endowing economic development, but I have other donors who would like to donate to create a loan fund for our local businesses in those communities. And so as they are working on how they might structure this type of project, we will be actually doing it with the Community Investment Fund and trying to help them and inform their decisions. And so we're really excited about that. We think the partnerships between the two could be significant. And the one nice thing about our entrepreneurship communities is if a community foundation wants to do this type of work, all of these local e-communities have already been doing loans and they've demonstrated capacity. So the community foundation doesn't have to figure all that out. They already have a local team that can do that part of it. So we're very excited about that. And my guess is that you'll probably be hearing directly about that maybe in the next couple of months from maybe Deb Markley or someone from the Locus Impact Investing team. So, and that's all I got.
Very, very good. Okay, so while people are thinking about, this is your time for questions, and while people are thinking about their questions, I may have missed it as I'm trying to do all the background stuff, but would you reiterate your, I heard you say that you're going to get the referrals for this program from your current partners, which would include your 65 e-communities, but who else might those referrals come from?
There's there's 2 types of deal flow. Now we have 60 e-communities making loans every month. We also have the Kansas Capital Multiplier Loan Fund. And so all of the certified development companies that are submitting for those, like North Central, okay. Actually, their names are so long, it's better that I remember them by their Doug McKinney in Beloit, Randy from Hill City, Bob Wetmore from Western Great Plains. All of those organizations are, they submit loans every month from us as well. So all of those certified development companies. So let's say an economic development director has a project, but it's not quite cooked yet. We would refer them to one of our certified development companies to help, kind of get the deal ready. But the other thing is we're looking at, like all of those deals I just mentioned to you that we got last month, all of those deals are candidates for this investment portfolio. And so basically it will help. Now, the nice thing is that Network Kansas can take a little bit more of the risk. We may have already funded that deal. And if it looks really risky, we to this because this is like a portfolio. And so we are approaching this with a portfolio in mind as well. So all of those organizations that are in our partner network that are generating loans right now could also work on direct applications as well.
Fantastic. All right, folks, you've had a moment to think. Unmute your own lines and let me, or give me a chat box question and we'll, what questions do you have? Everyone's deep in thought.
Well, I was either that good or that bad. The one thing I would mention to you, if you are an e-community and you work with Simone and Shelley are going to be part of the first cohort. They've been involved in this from the get-go, and so I would recommend that you contact Simone or Shelley and ask them any questions that you have. You could also talk to them. If you have a specific project, I would recommend you contact Imogene at first.
Great.
Hi, this is Debbie Peters with the North Central Regional Planning Commission, and I have a question.
Great, Deb.
Could you clarify, Steve, whether you're taking more risk with your existing Network Kansas programs or more risk with the Community Impact Fund? I didn't quite understand your comment in that regard.
I would say that in general the risk will be is already more on our, like the Startup Kansas Fund is probably our riskiest fund that we have now, and so we may take deals out of the Startup Kansas Fund that you know we may buy some of them out of the Startup Kansas Fund, but we are looking at it more of an investment in those that will free up money to take more risk from some of our other loan funds. So the answer to that would be that in general, our current loan programs probably organically will have more risk in them than this program will, because we're taking a lot more. The biggest difference between this program and the others is every other loan program we have, we've kind of set it up and it goes on its own. I mean, we have a committee on the Startup Kansas, we have a committee on the multiplier, the e-communities make their own decisions. With these, we will be reviewing them internally on all those programs, and we will have staff reviews on any direct application as well. And so I would say that there's another step to this one, but it's also expanding out to other types of organizations which we normally haven't funded in the past, like a nonprofit, you know, daycare center, or a nonprofit elderly care center, or something like that. Those are just a nonprofit grocery stores as well. That perhaps that wouldn't have fit with the other loan programs.
Boy, I can see the value of the comprehensive nature of this. I mean, I've been in small towns where you see a closed elderly care that was probably the only job creator in that community, and it feels like quite a loss. Any other questions?
This is Debbie Peters again. So as a follow-up question or comment, I guess when you're looking at creating a vibrant community, you're looking at trying to sustain businesses that are critical to that community. And the reason that they're needing to be sustained is that maybe there's not a large enough population base for that business. And so I would think the Community Impact Fund would be filled with projects that have more risk than your other sources of funds.
It could turn out that way. it could turn out that way, but we're not, but it's, as I told Krita, this isn't a Save Me program. This isn't a Save Me business type of loan program. This is a program designed to create a pilot where the Health Foundation might say, you know what, we're going to take $10 million of our corpus and invest it in a community investment fund with the expectation of a return. And to create that type of model, that the goal, one of the goals is to create a model where someone like a health foundation or someone else, and I've said that in front of the Health Foundation before, and they haven't argued with it. So that's part of the goal. And in doing that, you're freeing up other risk capital money as well.
I think what we can be sure of is this will evolve and be different 6 months from now, probably, than it is today.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
Any other questions?
Well, thank you for giving me the time to share. Yeah. And you're right. You're the second group that's heard about this, and so over time we're kind of soft launching it this month, and you'll be hearing more about it in the next couple of months.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Steve. That Network Kansas is where we're going to be getting all of our referrals for programs. Oops, let me get somebody muted here. Oops, now you're looking at everything else. Okay. Okay, so next month we have Deb Brown with the Save Your Town. She is the Save Your Town co-founder. February, marketing your small town. And I leave you with this thought for the day. We are made wise not by the recollection of our past, but by the responsibility for our future, by George Bernard Shaw. Thanks everybody for joining us. And if you know somebody that ought to be hearing this call in the future, why, feel free to give me a shout out or give them an invitation. And we just want to get the word out to people who need to know about what we're doing here in Kansas. Great things are happening. Talk to you next month.
Thanks.